it was like a circle of hell. It was absolutely dreadful. In 4 days, he went from being really positive about starting to walk again, get back on his feet, get rid of the frame, and he went from that to wanting to die.
There are situations where older people are admitted to hospital with a condition that could be managed at home.
One of the biggest frustrations as a GP is that historically older people have tended to end up in hospital because that's the only place we've had the option of treating them. I think it's important for my elderly patients to be treated at home whenever we can, because going into hospital can be quite a frightening experience for them. They worry about being away from home, from family and friends, and they don't need that extra worry on top of being poorly. So if we've got the right support services in the community and we can treat them at home, then I think that's better, not only for us as professionals but also for them as patients.
And then they moved me on to one of the proper wards on the hospital instead of the admittance ward. That was less noisy, but it was still not very nice. It was in a 4-bed ward and people coming and going in the day and in the night as well. One poor man had got dementia, I think, and he was trying to take a fire hydrant off the wall. He thought it was a telephone. He could phone his family.
One of the things I often hear from my older patients is their worries and concerns about being treated in hospital. Obviously when they're poorly, they're frightened about the illness itself, but they're also worried about going into hospital, picking up infections, not having contact with family and friends.
The doctors here at the surgery thought I was better off in hospital to have some specialist care. And they did help me to get better, but 2 days and I'd had enough. I just asked, could I go home?
The hospital feels like the safe place to take somebody. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not the safest place for that person.
When we find an elderly person on the floor, we want to work out how they've fallen, for instance. So we need to work out if it's a collapse, if they become unwell, or if they simply fallen because they have poor mobility. They may have tripped. A lot of patients may have complicated past medical histories like Parkinson's, so they have regular falls. So we need to work out why they've fallen, and then we need to work out if they've hurt themselves during that fall. If it's the middle of the night, that's where that decision becomes harder, and we will tend to err on the side of caution. If we take them to A&E, we'd like to hope that they'll be assessed and then even discharged or not, and obviously only admitted if they need to be.
We do get a number of elderly patients come to the department. Obviously some of them do need to be admitted to the hospital because they're unwell, but there's a number, particularly out of hours when the community resources are not so readily available.
My dad fell and broke his hip on the Sunday morning of a bank holiday weekend. Was taken into A&E and they operated the same afternoon, which was really impressive. He was taken up to a ward where he was really well cared for, and then he was discharged by the orthopaedic team about 3 or 4 days later. And instead of sending him back to the care home where he lived, where there was nursing care and all the support that he could have needed, they transferred him to a rehabilitation ward, which was truly awful. He was the only person on that ward who hadn't got dementia, and it was like a circle of hell. It was absolutely dreadful.
More and more now we're seeing patients being discharged sicker and quicker, as I call it. Their needs can be quite complex, and unfortunately their discharges may not have addressed everything that the patient may need. So when I am visiting my patients for the first time now, I am being faced with patients that have more complex needs and who may be more medically unstable. So the risk of them being at home is greater. However, the rewards are much more satisfying if I can keep them at home.
We feel that our residents should be looked after within our own home environment. We've got skilled, qualified nurses, okay? So I believe that we ought to work together, okay, to keep them within the care home environment as much as possible.
He was discharged back to his care home after he'd been on that ward a week. And unfortunately he died 10 days later. And I will never know how much that week on that dreadful ward shortened his life. I shall always suspect that it did.
The admission avoidance team, it's a team of physiotherapists, occupational therapists, nurses and a social worker. And we see patients that come through the emergency department that are medically well enough to go home but may need other support in the community. So we liaise with GPs and other community services and ongoing therapy as well to get them home safely.
Jet service started on the 6th of May, and the information we received suggests that the patients are happy in terms of having an option of being treated at home as opposed to going into hospital.
We need to change the culture around managing information, make it more accessible to family. They're the people who are good carers. We might make all these measures to make it available to the ambulance service, to the A&E, but actually, the people who really need to know that, and they can tell you straight away if they know that it's important, is the patient and the family.
I feel really sad and really angry because my dad had got me to stand up for him, but there must be people in his situation who don't have a daughter to stand up for them. I hate to think of what life's like for them and what happens to them.